What's good, everyone? The NBA draft lottery is finally here. Us Nets fans, we've been waiting for this day ever since we got our picks back. That was almost a year ago. This is uncharted territory for us, having a high lottery pick. The last lottery pick we used on Derek Favors. We traded him right away for Darren Williams. So this is our first chance at some real homegrown talent in like decades. And maybe, just maybe, we get blessed with Cooper Flagg getting the number one pick. 9% chance. But either way, this draft lottery is going to have a huge impact on the Nets going forward. And today we're going to be going over how every single scenario can potentially impact the Nets' long-term vision and plans going forward. This is going to be like part one of my little Nets offseason mini-series. I plan on making some deep dives on prospects as we get closer to the draft and as we know what picks the Nets are going to have. I'll be doing the same with free agency, summer league stuff. So make sure you guys are subscribed. And yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right into this. So since 2019, the way the draft lottery has worked is that the three worst teams record-wise in the league all equally have a 14% chance at getting the number one pick. And the top four picks are the only ones that are determined through the ping pong balls. And the rest of the order is shaped accordingly through which of those four teams got picked. So, for example, if the Nets, with their number 6 best odds, if they are the third team to get their ping pong order called, they're going to be picking third. And that would seemingly push the 4th and 5th best odd teams down in spot unless those teams also hear their lottery balls or their order of lottery balls called. So basically, no matter how crazy the draft lottery is or how unlikely the order shapes out to be, there are going to be teams that get screwed over, and then there are going to be teams that get lucky. So while the lottery is a bit more of a crapshoot now with the post-2019 format, there is still incentive for teams to shamelessly tank, as the worse record you have, the better your worst-case scenario pick actually is. So in regards to the Nets, I know a lot of discourse around the Nets this year was they should have tanked a bit harder. They should have traded vets away. So their worst-case scenario is in pick 8 or pick 9 like it is right now. But with that being said, though, the draft lottery is a crapshoot. We're going to see a team maybe like the Jazz or the Wizards. Most likely one of them is going to have to get screwed over, and they did all that losing just to not get a Cooper Flagg-esque prospect. So now let's go over the chances of the Nets actually getting lucky and ending up with a good value pick, or the odds of them falling and getting a more worst-case scenario. So since 2019, the teams with the first pick, all their odds were 14%, the highest possible odds you can have, besides 2 teams. And that was last year with the Hawks with only 3%. That's an all-time low since the new rules. And then in 2019, the Pelicans. So there have only been 2 cases out of these 6 years where the Nets saw a team with worse odds actually get the number one pick. So not really great odds there. And that's a very interesting part of the Nets having the number 6 best odds, is because since 2019, no team having the 9% chance at number one has even seen themselves jump in the top 4. 24, it was the Raptors who dropped to pick 8. That became Rob Dillingham. 2023, the Magic stayed put. They got Anthony Black. The Blazers and Golden State in 22 and 21, they both dropped. They got Sharp and Kuminga. In 2020, the Knicks dropped all the way to 8. They got Obi Toppin. And in 2019, the Wizards got really unlucky. 3% chance of them falling to 9. And that just so happens they take Rui Hachimura. Those names are just not the level of prospects that Zion and Ja Morant are. So while the 6th pick is due, if the Nets do jump into the draft lottery, the Nets are going to, if they do drop into the 8, pick 9, the chances are they're going to be looking at a lot less quality of prospects or less high of ceilings. With that being said, though, I do want to make the argument that not getting into the top 4 isn't the end of the world in a draft class like this. The reason why I say that is because every prospect not named Flagg has kind of a huge marker or butt to them that makes you question how high he should be put on a big board. Let's go down the list with talking about the top 4 guys: Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and VJ Edgecombe. With Ace, you love the fact that he's a star-level shot maker when he's on. He's got defensive upside and tools you can really work with, and the on-ball scoring upside is just flat-out special. But the handle, his feel for the game as a passer, and just his lack of production and impact at Rutgers can all put a huge cap on him and really limit the talent level that he does possess. And then with Dylan Harper, you love his downhill and finishing ability as much as you love the flashes Ace has shown as a shot maker. But what does that mean if his big question mark, which is as a shooting, specifically as a pull-up shooter, if that's not improved on, can he really become that primary creator? Can the idea of Dylan Harper really be flashed out if some of those flaws aren't improved on? And then with VJ Edgecombe, you love his ability to pass, defend, and shoot, all while having some pretty great athletic abilities. But he's a bit undersized. Is he a wing? Is he a guard? Or is he going to guard point of attacks? Or is he going to be a small guy guarding wings? He's pretty stiff on the ball right now, and he's a bad finisher. So what's his scoring upside looking like, and how much do you want to use a top 4 pick on a guy who might not ever hit those high scoring heights? And then you can kind of use the same method with the quote unquote doomsday guys, or the guys that the Nets could draft at, worst case scenario with the pick 7, pick 8, pick 9, like Kaman Malawach. You love the physical tools. You love his lob gravity, his vertical gravity. He's got promising touch for a big man, but his lack of feel and the rebounding and block production stuff is as concerning as Harper's shooting stuff or Bailey's feel for the game. With Con Knipple, his Duke teammate, you love the shooting impact, the finishing improvements he showed, or the pick and roll scoring juice that he showed. But he's got some huge butts too. His defense isn't that great, and it was kind of hidden throughout the season. And he's also not that great of an athlete. So how much is that going to limit his ceiling and his impact when you get into, times like the playoffs? We can keep going on. Colin Murray-Boyle, he's a really, really good defender, arguably the best defender in this class, honestly. He's a great slasher. He's got some on-ball scoring juice because of that slashing ability. He's got good feel, but how much does that mean if, he's going to not be able to shoot the ball and he kind of ends up as a tweener, as an undersized 5, but a 4 who can't shoot? Jeremiah Fears, everyone loves his age, his downhill ability, his handle for an 18-year-old is, stuff of a star. He's got 3-level upside if the shot comes along, but he's just so far behind in terms of the idea that he is kind of a project player. Like I said, the shooting's not there yet. That's really going to have to improve. He's undersized. He's got to really improve as a processor. So there's a lot of things that Fears is going to have to improve on for his upside to be hit on. Same with Derek Queen. He's got similar upside with Fears. He has that offensive hub upside. I think the defensive rebounding and the skill, is obviously there too, but he's unathletic. He's undersized as a 5. He's not a shooter, so that means he can't really be a 4. How can you build around that? Those are questions that all need to be answered as teams evaluate these guys. And then you got guys like Trey Johnson too. He's an unreal perimeter shot maker, but he's kind of raw elsewhere. He's skinny. He can't really finish around the rim or get to the rim at a high level. The defense comes and goes, and the shot die, what is he contributing if the jumpers aren't falling for him? So while going through the strengths and the weaknesses of all these prospects really quickly, like I just did, isn't really the best process to evaluate some of these guys. You can say Harper is going to be good even with a inconsistent jumper, or you can say Jeremiah Fears, I think you should bet on his shooting upside because of the touch he has around the rim. There's obviously a lot more context to the, weaknesses. You can say Ace's situation in Rutgers was shitty. If he gets drafted into, a good development system, he's going to be fine and all that talent's going to be oozed out. But what I'm trying to say is basically any scenario where the Nets are not picking number 1, they're going to draft a prospect that's that is going to have some swings to them in terms of, all right, we're going to draft Trey Johnson at 8. We're going to swing on the idea that Jordy can help him on the defensive end and as a playmaker, and that's going to be enough to really get that shot-making stuff of a all-star level player really out of him, and he can actually be a real impactful piece, a real core piece going forward for the Nets. And that kind of leads me into my final point in how the Nets' long-term vision will be affected by wherever they draft after the draft lottery results come in on Monday. if the Nets end up picking at 8, is that going to say, hey, like this tanking thing kind of didn't work out for us? We're going to just go and trade for Giannis now and use pick 8 to land Giannis. And then, the East kind of sucks right now, as we're seeing with how wide open it is. The Celtics look really bad right now. They're down 2-0 to the Knicks as I'm recording this. You can say, yeah, we're going to trade for Giannis. We're going to use pick 8 as like our centerpiece. And, we think Giannis really wants to join a big market or whatever. They can say that, or they can also say, hey, we're picking 8. Let's run this tank back next year and hope we can get a guy like AJ Dybantsta, a guy like Cameron Boozer, blue chip prospects that, can really be the face of the franchise. And the guy we pick at 8, maybe it's Con Knippel. Maybe it is a bit more upside swinging like Derek Queen. Maybe then they say, okay, like we got our 2 guys here. We can evaluate how good they can be. And then by 2027, we can start cashing in on these picks and turn them into core pieces. We can use this cap space we have into, impact free agent signings. And then we can really start accelerating this rebuild forward. So what I'm trying to say is what the Nets should do, no matter how the draft lottery pans out, is stick to the 2-year plan, right? They got 2 picks back from Houston. Their draft pick for this year, the pick that's in the draft lottery right now, and then a pick for next year. They don't have full control of their 2027 pick. And what that says to me is that they are in like a 2-year young talent accumulation mode, right? Like draft whoever at pick 8, maybe you get pick 2, maybe you get pick 4, maybe you even get pick 1 and Cooper Flag. That could be a whole different reaction video. The franchise is going to change like significantly if you get the number 1 pick. But if you don't, then you're still kind of in that young talent accumulation mode, right? Maybe you draft Trey Johnson, use all the late first, or maybe you trade out, get another 26 pick, and then, you run it back next year, trade some of the vets, and then just play a really young rotation and see what you have in these guys for the full year. And then next year, you just go about it pretty similar. You hope the draft lottery gives you some pretty good talent or a lot of good options there. As I said, Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, Nate Ahmed, Jaden Quaytons. That draft class is looking stacked right now, probably better than this one. So it's like if we can pull 2 core guys or 2 long-term guys in this draft, and then we get our guy next year, then we're looking at the quote-unquote 2-year rebuild pretty optimistically. And then for the 2026 to 27 season, that's when we can start really linking this team into Giannis talks or into whatever superstar is on the market. Because stars are always on the market, and we play in New York, so like we're always going to be on lists for that. I think this process is kind of similar to what the Rockets have right now, where they just have a bunch of, fun, young guys. Some like Şengün are better than others, like Jalen Green. But now, they have to kind of evaluate how far can we go with this group of guys, or should we cash in and make that big star trade? Yeah, so that's going to do it for today. Those are all my thoughts before the draft lottery. I'll probably try and upload a draft lottery reaction or a live reaction or whatever type of video after we know what pick the Nets get, and kind of just rant about that, whatever happens. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment your thoughts below. Comment, the prospects you want the Nets to draft, regardless of what pick they end up landing. And, I'm hyped for the draft lottery, man. I've been thinking about it all week. Like I said, this is uncharted territory for us Nets fans. We haven't really experienced the draft lottery like at all, pretty much, especially since the move to Brooklyn. So yeah, it's pretty exciting, man. Monday, May 12th, ESPN, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The Nets franchise could be changed as we know it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.